Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Katie. I'm the president and CEO of El Sistema USA. Give me just a second while I turn off the doorbell. There we go. Everybody just breathes a sigh of relief. It's my pleasure to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Stanford Thompson. Stan is the founding board chairman of El Sistema USA, and he is also the founder of the National Instrumentalist Mentoring and Advancement Network. And he's here to share with us tonight a bit about his work with NIMAN. And we'll have, Stan is going to share a presentation, and then we'd love to talk about the network. And I asked, we have about 30 people now. We may break into breakout rooms to have smaller conversations, but we'll do a little bit of information sharing and then some networking and just having fun and checking in too. Stan, over to you.
Awesome. Katie, thanks so much. Folks, thanks so much for being here tonight. I do hope that you all have a handy beverage. I promise I won't talk too long so that this doesn't get warm. But I'm super excited to share with you about the National Instrumentalist Mentoring and Advancement Network. For those that don't know me, I'm Stanford Thompson, founder and executive director of Play on Philly. And I think many of you know my story and work in the field over the past 12 years. I'm humbled to work with so many passionate and talented people in my organization at POP, and also this network at El Sistema USA that I have called home since I've started doing this work after college. However, I want to tell you the story of cellist Daniel Dorsey, who is pictured on the opening slide here. And just a couple of hours ago, I got off the phone with him and his mom as he was wrapping up his final virtual college audition. He's applying to the top 8 most competitive programs that a cellist can hope to get into. And hearing like his nervous excitement about his next step and his parent sacrifice over the years brought back a ton of memories and emotions. So Daniel, he began his musical journey on the piano when he was 5. He switched to the cello 4 years later with the help of a community-based Suzuki program in Florida, where he was born. A couple of years after starting cello, he and his 3 brothers moved to Cincinnati, where he was quickly taken in by his private teachers, Dr. Sarah Kim and Alan Rafferty, because of how much ground he covered in the 3 years after his match to the cello. Sarah and Alan, they run the cello studio of the Cincinnati Young Artists, and this is where he received group and private lessons in addition to some ensemble and solo experience. They pointed him in the direction and prepared him to enter the Cincinnati Junior Strings program at the University of Cincinnati. This performing orchestra experience was designed to augment what the Young Artist program could provide at the time, to give him the opportunities to develop the large ensemble chops he needed to leapfrog over his competition and earn a seat in the top Cincinnati Symphony Youth Orchestra ensemble his freshman year of high school. As he worked his way up the section each year in the CSYO, he would find his home in joining the Novo program offered by the Cincinnati Symphony, where youth classical musicians of color are provided specialized mentorship and performing opportunities. In partnership with the University of Cincinnati's Conservatory Prep School, he is receiving an equitable shot to build the chops that he needs to be competitive at his college auditions. Before ending the call, I asked his mom, Regina, what she thought about all of this. And she simply replied that Daniel's involvement in music gave him a rich social experience that kept him engaged in healthy pursuits and success. None of this would have been possible without the financial support and the mentorship provided along the way. That's it. That's all she said. Nothing about music, performing in beautiful halls, receiving prizes like from the Topps Jack Kent Cooke Young Artist Award, or playing in master classes with all of the big names in the string world. And I think regardless of where his musical path takes him, the impact music has on his life will stay with him forever, achieving all of the outcomes we hope our collective programs have on the lives of the young people that we work with day to day. However, I hope he is met with the same levels of consistent support he received to this point as he navigates the conservatory pre and even young professional years. And I think all of us certainly have had our stories and journey along the way. So I like to think that Daniel is traveling across a bridge instead of a pipeline, with several exit ramps towards other life goals he might switch to later. This is a bridge that has a destination of placement in a professional career in music and divides the musical life into 5 pivotal phases: entry in early years, high school and pre-college, college and conservatory, pre-professional, and young professional. Each phase is supported by the same 5 attributes that must be in alignment if the traveler is to advance to the next phase. Those are psychological and behavioral preparation, technical training, logistical and financial support, organizational support, and talent identification and opportunities. So we all know the first 2 phases very, very well. The first phase is the entry point. In-school music programs, private after-school programs like ours, and community music schools. Too many urban and rural school districts struggle to provide that entry point into instrumental music, and we all know the challenges and opportunities a bit too well. The second phase is made up of regional and state ensembles, private junior youth ensembles, prep schools, instrument upgrades that sometimes can be extremely costly, and college trips and auditions. Lots of hoops to jump through for parents and organizations like ours, and music advancement opportunities that are driven by paying tuition. The third phase has the least amount of support for musicians of color and tends to be the most pivotal step any professional musician makes. Most of us experience this in this Zoom room, and your teachers and conductors and classmates can mean the difference between having the insider information and future networks to advance in the field. The country's premier pre-professional training institutions in phase 4, like graduate school programs, training orchestras, and fellowship programs, have extremely high success rates of preparing and placing musicians directly into the country's top professional positions. There are several noteworthy efforts in this phase, but many fall short of the holistic training, the mentorship, and even that data-driven feedback that we all see every single day that we work with our kids and we work with our families. And these are the things that are really needed to satisfy the 5 key professional, the 5 key attributes musicians of color consistently need to make that final leap into a professional career in phase 5. 4 years ago, my friends Shay Scruggs, Weston Sprott, and I interviewed over 3 dozen of our professional colleagues of color who shared their stories from the moment they touched their instrument to the day they felt secure in paying all of their bills as a performing musician. Using those stories, we built a matrix that further describes the challenges one could face through the lens of racial equity and the resources needed to overcome those challenges. I believe this is the best representation of what I mean by the myriad of opportunities and resources that need to be in alignment in order for musicians to advance. It's no easy task for an organization or parents to provide everything, but it is much easier if there's a level of collaboration and collective action to exponentially increase the stories like Daniel's and the odds they have to begin a professional career performing music. And like with Play on Philly, after almost 11 years of doing this work, we've had a good number of students to go off to places like the Royal College in London, the Peabody Conservatory. And I think about the same thing. When they started playing their instruments when they were little, we were able to guide every part of connecting between summer camps they went to, the local groups in Philly, other national groups they played in, including through El Sistema USA and our friends out in Los Angeles. But I know that once we pass them on at the college age, we don't have that level of control and help anymore. And there is a big question of what happens to these students as they make some of those difficult steps and challenging steps towards a professional career. 2 years ago, I proposed to my colleagues across the spectrum of the bridge to establish a national association of organizations and individuals that would align resources and collaborate on strategies to empower musicians of color as they traverse the path from their formative musical years through advanced training and into a career in classical music. This is how NIMAN was born, a culmination of years of planning, meeting, and a multi-day convening in Cincinnati to form the association that strengthens the trajectory of classical instrumentalists of color throughout the United States. So it's our goal to help the field of classical musicians achieve racial equity. As a membership-based national association, we work as a connector, a convener, a facilitator for music organizations and BIPOC instrumentalists. And we look at our work following kind of two parallel paths. That first path is around building a comprehensive bridge of support and mentorship for the instrumentalists themselves to navigate from that student to a professional and assist in breaking down all of the barriers they might have to achieving success. The second path is around providing forms and resources and training for our members to dismantle the structural inequities, the biases, the systemic racism that's ingrained in the policies and the practices that really inhibit the musicians from advancing. So our mission is really centered around the values of collaboration, of staying connected, and also equity. And we believe that in working together and openly sharing information and best practices and even new ideas, that it can lead to creating more equitable opportunities across the field. So we're committed to designing inclusive and equitable systems and doing everything that we can to encourage those that have power to dismantle all of the forms of discrimination in the field that we have talked about for quite some time. So there are 5 major programs that we will roll out in the coming months. You can read more about these programs, and as I talk about a couple of ways that you can get involved, you can read more about this on our website at niman.org, our acronym. One of those programs is a Youth Musician Leadership Summit that will help elevate the voices of young people, providing them an opportunity to share their experiences as musicians and even give advice to educators and institutions on ways that they can best be engaged. Second is around campus visits. We'll start off virtual and as safe as it becomes, or quickly as it becomes, we will be on campus in the flesh visiting colleges and summer programs. And that's really designed to work with instrumentalists from underrepresented backgrounds that can have them meet and learn about the music schools and conservatories and help them find their best fit for their own learning needs in a cultural sensitive way that encourages them to continue to practice and work hard. The third is around a career development forum, and this is for recent college graduates and early career instrumentalists. These will be opportunities to augment some of their training, but in a much more specialized way that helps them prepare for some of their auditions coming up and also learn how to navigate some of the challenges in the current classical music landscape. The fourth is around teaching seminars for any musician who teaches, private teachers, college professors, but helping them to understand some of the biases that they may have, everything from selecting students that come study in their schools or in their studios, all the way to helping to build inclusive instruction around the curriculum that they have, the music that they use, repertoire, so that they can be much more holistic in their approach to teaching classical music, that also respects the contributions that people of color have made to classical music over the years. And the last programmatic area is just a national convening on an annual basis. And this will really serve as an opportunity to ensure alignment across our membership. We'll have a chance to look at a report card to see how we are collectively doing. And then also have some honest conversations around the evaluation and the tangible results that we're trying to make in classical music. So there's a couple of ways that you can become involved. You can join as a member, as either an active program. These are programs that have an initiative going on. We all naturally qualify as El Sistema USA members and programs. There's also a membership for supporting organizations. These are organizations that might not have a program yet that is focused on, or an initiative that is focused on helping classical musicians of color advance, but they still want to be part of NIMAN. And of course, individuals, people that are musicians, educators, or just love music, and they know that this is a problem and they want to help out the best that they can. You can also join a task force, and we currently have 4 of those. We have artist mentors and an advisory council, pretty self-explanatory. We have a task force for member engagement and for nominating and governance. And some of those require that you have to be a member. Some of these you can actually join and not be a member on one of the task force. Again, more information on our website about that. And then lastly, we are open for nominations for our board, helping to govern and steer the organization, and looking for people that are very passionate about playing a leading role and helping us make that change in the years to come. So with that said, just wanted to introduce this all to you all, let you all know that this is going on. Hope you'll visit our website, hope that you will drop us an email. Also, my colleague McGee is here in the Zoom room as well, and hope that you'll introduce yourself to her, and she can also help with any questions that you have. So it's been an exciting time. And, last thing is just that, I understand that the goals of our program are not focused around pushing kids into professional careers. But we've certainly all seen that the work that we have done has certainly given some of our kids that appetite. And we want to make sure that there's a pathway for those students that see themselves being a professional musician, like I believe many of us in this room. And perhaps if the Boston Symphony would have had me as their first trumpet player, I probably would have taken the gig. I would have done it for a little bit. But like many of our kids, they have dreams like that as well, and we want to play our part in helping them to get there. So happy to answer a couple of questions. So feel free to ask, perhaps either put it in the chat or you can just unmute yourself. Great, The other thing you can do is open a beverage. You can also, if you want to be super fancy like I'm going to be, you can pour that beverage into something else and enjoy it. So cheers to everything that we're doing, right?
You're here. I have a question, Stan. How
Sure.
you just spoke about the different memberships. How could we at El Sistema USA and then within all of the El Sistema programs that we're working on, how can we partner with this initiative is there a way that is both kind of chat person by person, like young musician by young musician, so that for example, when I left Kids Notes, there were 6 young musicians who would be excellent and prepared for exactly this initiative. But how do I get those 6 kids in, plus kind of support the initiative in a bigger scale kind of way?
So as, for example, in this case, Katie, that you brought up, Kids Notes could join as a member. And as a member, they could sign those 6 students up for opportunities, for mentorship. And also through NIMAN, we're working very closely with summer camps, for example, and even colleges to do things like waive application fees, make sure that they have resources to, for example, go visit Juilliard and have their private trial lesson paid for, and be able to, I think, have an experience at Juilliard, like meeting with the other BIPOC musicians that are at the school, be able to sit through some classes. So I think there are plenty of those opportunities for all of our students that will fall under this category, to have access to those resources and those networks. And then in terms of kind of multiplying this work, I mean, honestly, the work that El Sistema USA is doing, even in the first 2 spans of the bridge concept, I mean, the level of advocacy, the partnership El Sistema USA, for example, has with NAFME's Roundtable, helping to do some lobbying in Washington. These are all things that we know are very, very important, as everyone we talked to talked about their experience getting access to music through programs like the ones we run. So if this doesn't happen, the rest of the process doesn't work.
Awesome. Thanks, Stan. There's a couple of good questions in the chat.
So Mr. Mike Angel asked about things. Can you tell us more, anything more about the process of mentor recruitments across the bridge? So at this moment, we have a sign up for those that are interested in doing that work. Once we have that list compiled, then we'll be working very closely with our members to make matches with interested students. Currently, those organizations that sign up before March 1st will be considered founding members. They'll also have the ability to vote on the first board of directors. And so once the work begins this spring, we'll be making those matches as students are preparing for auditions, and also preparing for other local and national programs. I hope that answered the question. Selfish question from Alex McLeod. Any plans to include Canadian programs, universities, and conservatories in the program? Short answer is, this is very possible. We haven't planned for our Canadian friends yet. So certainly can take this idea, considering there are many, many fine places in Canada to study in the summertime and study at the college level. I think there's another question about including other Canadian organizations, if they're professional orchestras on one end of the bridge, or even Sistema programs on another. I don't have an answer for that yet, but certainly can take that idea back. I believe the answer would be yes. because we haven't, as we think about doing this work in the United States, we certainly know that there are friends north and south of us that are worthy to spend time with. Christina asked a question, looks like, yes. Previously a professor at an HBCU, that's a historically Black college and university, and I understand how difficult that college/conservatory portion of the bridge is for BIPOC students and families to navigate. Stan, that's me. Have you thought about reaching out to HBCUs to recruit mentors and to look for students who may benefit from this program? The answer to that is yes. The other thing that we're very interested in is that in addition to HBCUs having really, really great music programs and students in them, they also have great faculty and staff members that are routinely left out of consideration for other positions across the country. So the other thing that we're very interested in doing is helping to provide, I think, some real dialogue around building relationships between HBCU music programs and then music programs of their counterparts in other universities and conservatories across the country. A lot of work to be done there, but there's a lot of interest from a couple of the HBCUs that we've talked to in the planning, but even more interest from the non-HBCU college level programs to collaborate. Ray, what is the range for organization member cost? Excellent question. And yes, you got it right. The information is on the website. Essentially, for this first year, so in 2021, members can pay what they wish. However, after this year, there is a certain, what do you call it, like math equation thingy that we use to calculate the membership dues, but they cap at $2,500. That mostly applies to really, really big organizations. For example, the New England Conservatory that has a budget around $45 million. But for any organization that has a budget under $300,000, regardless of the time, if you, whatever year you sign up, those organizations will have a pay what you wish model if you have a budget under $300,000. Okay. If there's no other questions, perhaps.
I have a question.
Yes.
So Stan, you know, I forgot what it was called, the bridge that you had, where it was like elementary, high school, college, pre-prep. And so it seems like NIMAN is doing work sort of from the middle upwards. And when I think about the field, and it occurs to me that a lot of the time, so we understand that not all students are going to go on and study music. So we all understand that. But then it occurs to me that sometimes those who want to go on to music are actually not prepared by the time that they get to grade 11, 12 to actually take their audition. They're not musically prepared, technically prepared in terms of theory. So I wonder what NIMAN's plans are to actually support the bottom end, whether that's in thought, whether that's in advice around how do we shift programs to get those students who want to get there closer to jump from high school to college. Any thoughts about that?
Yep. So the thing that we don't want to do is, as an association, we do not want to create competing programs at any level or any phase of the bridge. And Monique, in this question that you asked, what we do want to do is work with those prep programs, those youth orchestra programs, that a lot of them offer things like music theory and access to teachers, to have them work more closely with organizations like ours, for example, El Sistema programs, and providing more access to those classes and opportunities. So that is one of those instances where a policy of you must be a member of the Philadelphia Youth Orchestra to take part in our music theory class, of saying just change the policy and let any kid show up. I would be happy to send 4 kids to that music theory class if you just let them in. So that's kind of the level of saying that, again, there's in a lot of places, and I know this doesn't apply to every single city that might have these resources, but between things like those youth orchestra programs, even a lot of university prep programs or universities themselves offer some of those classes. Even lots of community colleges offer classes in music theory that could be made available. So that's the way that we want to work and partner and ask organizations to collaborate and share resources. And take that principle and you could apply it to any phase of the bridge, of asking that organization, can you bend a little bit to help people in the phase before have that entry point and be able to move forward. Looks like a question from, Mr. Mark Churchill. Are you developing ways to address the traditional Urocentricity of Western classical music? So yes, the answer is yes to that. It's another one of those policies, for example, at the college level, so many kind of admissions departments and by extension their faculty are struggling with, well, if we're going to change the repertoire, we don't really know it. So if a kid comes in with another piece to play, how do we even wrap our heads around judging that Florence Price piano concerto next to, insert the name. So we understand that there's a lot of work there to be done. One of the big hopes that we have is that we can work with conservatories, for example, and help collectively push them to make some of those changes. Same thing goes for the music that is performed at that level, but we will also see the same thing for the youth orchestra level. Same types of issues and challenges. And so far in our initial conversations, we've received a lot of support in making the change, but we have found that lots of people are scared. They don't know what to do. Chicken or egg, which one comes first? Is it NEC says they want something different, so the youth orchestras respond, or the youth orchestra makes that change and our conservatories change?
Stan, that's fantastic to hear. I'm also interested from the student point of view, when the student expresses questions whether the future is bright for them in classical music given the situation. I guess you describe what you're doing, but what's the narrative that you give to the student who wants to be a classical musician, but wants to see a different vision from what they see in front of them right now?
Well, I think that is one important piece of the youth leadership group that we are putting together. And so far, we had a convening in Atlanta, I think in February of 2019, where students from the Accelerando program, or the Nashville Symphony's Accelerando program, articulated those same very issues, Mark. They want to see the classical music world shift and change. And in addition, and these are the words right out of the students' mouths, in addition to the more Eurocentric music they have learned, they also want to learn other orchestral pieces and solo pieces. So the thought is there from all ends. What we're trying to do is find the best way to have those conversations meet at the same table and changes be made from there. Won't be an easy task, but the desire is there. Can we collectively get the will to make those changes? Certainly want to go through some of these. I do want to make sure we all have a chance to kind of chat, but happy to kind of do my best with some of these questions. Andres, looks like he said, the problem of inclusion in this specific topic is just what the students, or also you see this problem on the teachers and the staff? Sorry for the question, but is for understand better because I don't live there. Andres, I'm not sure if you want to say anything else more about that. If Andres is
Hi,
here.
Stanford, how are you?
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Likewise.
Yes, I just asked this because I don't know if this program and everything, because I know that is a big problem with all these kind of things there, not only there, I think all the world, but in this specific situation there in USA. So maybe here in Venezuela it's different. That I don't say that here we doesn't have that kind of problem, but maybe we doesn't have in the same scale or such big as there. So, but I'm not sure if the problem is only focused on the inclusion of the students that belong to this, or also the staff, also teachers and everything that
Right.
you want to work to all of them be included.
Right. So yes, I mean, that's feedback we're getting across the board. Students, for example, want to see more teachers that look like them. And sometimes this is very difficult because we already see dozens of qualified musicians of color who should be in those faculty and staff positions. So for example, our friends at the Sphinx organization, they have their LEAD program that's training arts administrators of color specifically for the field of music. Many of them already in the past 2 years are being placed in organizations that haven't typically had them. The Cleveland Institute of Music, they have just launched a new initiative to help train faculty members and get them connected to more opportunities in the field as well. So I'm really excited about what those initiatives can help to create. And they both are following a very similar vision, which is it's a two-way street. Of course, the students need to practice and get good so they can get into these schools. The staff members, they need to develop the skills so that they're competitive at interviews. Same thing with faculty members. They need to build the chops and the resume to also do that. But that only happens if the right opportunities and guidance are provided on that end. And then on the other end of this equation, we need organizations to be, a little less racist and biased, and be able to look through some different lens. So when these applicants come up, we stop doing things like, nitpicking at all the things they can't do and overlook the things that they can, or take on the responsibility of saying that as an organization, we can help people grow in certain positions. So there's a lot of really, really great things happening. That's why I think NIMAN working side by side with initiatives for arts administrators and for faculty and teachers, that I think kind of collectively, I hope by the time I retire, we can retire this conversation about kind of the lack of representation. So Katie, I will ask you the question. I mean, it looks like there's a couple more questions. We can go after these questions. We can chat. So,
Stan, you've been talking about wanting to have your beer and chat for a couple minutes. Why don't you want to sum up?
Yeah, just get involved. Check out the website, send us an email. Happy to have some more conversations. We're very, very eager to sit down with organizations and kind of talk through where their organization kind of fits within this kind of larger bridge concept. So would love to see you all join as members, continue to work with LSystem USA, and just looking forward to seeing all your beautiful faces when it's safe to do so.
Awesome. Thank you, Stan. Okay, I'm gonna